Response. Proof that Lucifer had sex with Eve. 루시퍼가 이브와 섹스한 증거에 대한 질의응답.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Advent. I actually didn't intend to make a separate video for answering comments, but as there were many genuine questions from you all, I thought it would be productive to dedicate a video solely to answering questions. If you have not watched the video, Biblical Proof that Lucifer had sex with Eve, please watch it to get the full context of this video. Briefly summarizing, however, we saw that in the Genesis narrative, the serpent represented Satan, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil represented the ideal man and ideal woman respectively. The fruit symbolized Eve's love. Satan persuaded Eve to eat of the fruit. She then gave some to Adam, which he ate. This was the spiritual and physical fall of the first human ancestors. In the previous video, these conclusions were presented with solid biblical evidence. Let's just take one example, the fruit. I demonstrated that it was not a literal fruit with 6 different proofs. 1. Jesus' words in Matthew 15:11. 2. The Christian doctrine of original sin. 3. Other verses in the Bible saying or indicating that the fruit is of a sexual nature, e.g. Song of Songs chapter 4 verse 12 through 16 and Proverbs 30:20. 4. Adam and Eve cover their lower parts after their fall. 5. The Israelite law of circumcision. 6. The punishment of Eve being related to a sexual fall. I gave numerous scriptural and doctrinal reasons as to why the fruit was not a literal fruit. It was not just asserted without evidence to support it. Thus, to disprove the case, one must give actual reasons why the conclusions that were drawn were incorrect. So with that being in mind, let's look at the various questions and objections that were raised in the previous video. So the first one says, quote, "So you are saying that sex was the fruit? Then how do you reconcile that part of scripture which says be fruitful and multiply?" With respect to the question, we are not saying that the fruit is Eve's sexual organ, but rather that it represents the love of Eve. However, the way that the love of Eve, or the fruit, was manifested was in the spiritual sexual union between Lucifer and Eve, and the physical sexual fall between Eve and Adam. On your second question, that was answered in the previous video, Principle Series 1B, Back to the Blueprint. I recommend to watch that video not only for the answer to this question, but because we will be referring to that video in the future as well. But to keep it short, notice the order of the command given in Genesis 1:28. Be fruitful and multiply. To be fruitful is the criterion for the allowance of the second blessing, multiply. It is only after Adam and Eve had reached fruitfulness that they are allowed to multiply. In the fall, however, they had eaten the fruit while it was still unripe. Again, this is answered in more depth in Back to the Blueprint. So let's move on to the next question.